G'day, it's Jamie, and welcome to Tantanoola Tigers. Today, I'm reading an excerpt from a miner's diary and some old letters to the editor in newspapers about a Bengal tiger escape at Ballarat in 1855. So we'll get into it. This was copied from the State Library of Victoria and is an extract from Diary of a Miner Working on the Ballarat Goldfields, July 8th, 1855 to January 1st, 1856. While the Bengal tiger kept at Montezuma was being taken along on a cart in a strongbox, the cart capsized and the box split in two pieces, and out sprang the Bengal gent. This was just at the foot of Bakery Hill, a little past Coe the Baker's and opposite Hopkins' store. The tiger sprang into the store and went through the shop into the kitchen, where it found a leg of mutton, which it seized and commenced devouring it. The storekeeper was behind the counter at the time and vanished into a box. A large crowd collected round, but Joe did not wait to see how they would manage to take him. He is allowed to be the largest sized tiger ever exhibited, and he certainly looked a noble though savage animal in the cage. Friday, 10th of August, 1855. So this next article was published in Melbourne's Sportsman on Wednesday, the 15th of July, 1885, titled, Who Caught the Tiger? To the editor of the Sportsman. Sir, in your issue of 24th June, you ask if any of your readers are able to supply you with an answer as to who caught the tiger in Ballarat in 1855. The following is the person asked for to the best of my knowledge. Lanty Ryan, an intrepid daredevil son of the Emerald Isles, was the man who recaptured the tiger which escaped from a menagerie in Ballarat in 1855. Ryan was only armed with an iron bar when he undertook the daring exploit, which he fortunately accomplished without sustaining any personal injury. It appears that the tiger, after having escaped from its cage, traversed through the thoroughfares of the Golden City to the great consternation of the affrighted inhabitants. At last it entered an adjacent shop and lay down. Then the redoubtable Lantry appeared upon the scene, and gently but firmly curtailed its tigership's siesta. He fiercely laid hold of the chain attached to the animal's neck, and without any display of ill temper or ferocity on the part of the huge feline, the man led it back and safely deposited it in the cage from which it had escaped. Prior to the event narrated, Ryan resided in this colony, and many of the old uns remember him as a bold and determined man, endowed with great personal strength and activity. Yours, etc., George Dean, Tasmanian News Office, Hobart, Tasmania. So this next article was published in Melbourne's Sportsman on Wednesday, the 22nd of July, 1885, titled, Who Caught the Tiger? To the editor of the Sportsman. Sir, your correspondent, George Dean, is a little bit out in his communication re the Ballarat Tiger. The following are somewhat about the real facts. The tiger had been on exhibition for some time at the Charlie Napier Hotel, but the proprietor, getting into monetary difficulties, a seizure under a writ was made and the animal was removed to the George Hotel premises in Lydiard Street. The Ballarat main road in those days was not noted as being extremely level. On the contrary, there were some rather large ruts and holes. Into one of these ruts, one wheel of the dray containing the cage in which the tiger was confined suddenly dropped. The cage toppled off into the road, split into two pieces, and the tiger was at liberty. The animal made 2 or 3 bounds towards the first shelter it could find, which happened to be a small store at the bottom of Bakery Hill. Here he crept under the counter and lay down quietly, apparently rather astonished at his unusual position and more frightened than the unfortunate storekeeper whose premises he had jumped. The storekeeper made tracks at once by clearing the counter in grand style and rushing into the street. After a short time, the cage was quickly repaired and a hunk of beef placed in it. The tiger, in the meantime, was lying quiet in the corner he had taken up. A few of the boards on the front of the counter in the vicinity of the tiger's retreat were knocked off. The cage was then placed in front of the hole in the counter, and the smell of the beef and the familiar appearance of his old quarters were too much for his tigership. He quietly crept in through the open door of the cage, which was immediately closed, and the capture was complete. Lanty Ryan may have been among the few persons present, not more than 20 altogether, but there was certainly no chain around the tiger's neck for him to take hold of. The whole affair was over in the course of half an hour, and very few people knew anything about the matter until the next morning's paper gave them the news. Yours, etc., the driver of the cart, the end. Okay, so this was also in the same paper on the same day. Another letter to the editor of the Sportsman. Sir, in reading over your last week's paper, I observed above heading in your answer to yours on the 24th of June, requesting information concerning the matter, and having been an eyewitness to the capture of the animal, I thought I would give you the facts as I saw them. Your former correspondent evidently knew nothing of the matter. In the first place, the beast was not confined to any menagerie whatever. At the time he escaped, he was being conveyed from the old Charlie Napier Theatre, then kept by Mr. John Gibbs, in his cage upon a horse and dray. When he had got as far as the junction of the main road and Humphrey Street, the wheel of the dray got into a rut, of which there were plenty of in those days, and capsized the cage into the road. Some portion of the cage was broken sufficiently for the tiger to escape, when he went very quickly into the store of Messrs. Hopkins and Cole, just close to where the capsize took place. He coolly walked through the store and quietly lay down under a table in the back room. Of course, a crowd soon collected, and various schemes were suggested for his capture, the tiger not taking the least notice. A rope was obtained and a noose placed on the end of a pole. Several attempts were made to entice him to put his head into the trap, but he was not to be had that way. One of the proprietors of the store was standing atop a table over the tiger, with a double-barreled gun waiting for a pop. Just as this minute in came the man that captured the tiger. He coolly took the rope in his hands, went down on his knees, and placed the noose over his head. That man's name was John Hannon, and not Lanty Ryan, as your correspondent tells you. The cage, in the meantime, was nailed up again and brought round the back of the store, and the doorway placed close to the back door of the store. A hole was then bored through the back of the cage, and the rope that the tiger was on placed through it, and another rope was fastened to the noose on the tiger's neck and passed out the front of the store as a check. A pull was now taken on the back rope, and the tiger brought on to his feet. He scarcely knew what to make of it. He had no time to think about it, as another resolute pull had him up to his cage. In the next minute he was safely secured and conveyed up to the yard of the George Hotel, where he remained for some considerable time. What ultimately became of him I cannot say. He was a wonderful fine animal, the finest specimen of a Royal Bengal Tiger I ever saw. For a piece of cool daring, I don't think I ever saw anything to beat John Hannon's pluck. If I remember rightly, he was a bit on, which was too often the case. Poor old fellow. He went to the bad after leaving Ballarat. You may rely on what I have told you to be strictly true. Yours, etc., G. Thurston, Ballarat, 18th of July, 1885. Okay, so this final article was published in the Melbourne's Sportsman on Wednesday, the 5th of August, 1885. Titled, Who Caught the Tiger? To the editor of the Sportsman. Sir, in your issue of 22nd of July are two letters under the heading Who Caught the Tiger? One signed the driver of the cart, the other G. Thurston. Both writers assert that the version submitted in a previous edition is incorrect, and each undertaking as eyewitnesses of the incident at the recapture of the tiger, a true and full account of the whole affair. I will not impose upon your courtesy nor valuable space by indicating the irreconcilable discrepancies in the statement given by these two most veracious eyewitnesses. I would, however, remind them that the sized cage usually allotted to such large animals is not of the dimensions to be carried through the doorway of a small stall at the bottom of Bakery Hill. But if his story is to be correct, then G. Thurston must have been, upon that memorable occasion, in the dubious condition as he ascribed to John Hannon, that is, a bit on. G.T.'s touching reference to the lamentable fate of his thesis is very affecting, and until it is corroborated by more reliable witnesses, the driver, he need not be so confiding as to expect that his remembrances of the episode will be accepted as strictly true. Yours, etc., George Dean, Hobart, 29th of July, 1885 then. Well, that's pretty crazy, that. So there's three guys got different opinions of what happened, and like four guys if you count their minor guy from the start. But these three letters were written 30 years apart after the fact of the letters of the editor, they were. But so the tiger got out, it's run into the shop, and they've caught it and got it back into the cage. And it ended, the guy who owned the Charles Napier Hotel, he's gone bust, and that's why it was being moved, because he must have lost the tiger to a debt, and it ended up at the George Hotel. And this tiger at the George Hotel, I've done 3 stories on this same tiger, so this is the 4th one now. When it was taken to the George Hotel, it was on display there and on show, and some drunk guy wanted to have a pat of the tiger, and it nearly tore his arm off. And so eventually the hotel guy, he's gone to Melbourne in Chinatown and ran a hotel there, and he's taken the tiger with him. Well, one night the tiger got out of the enclosure it was being kept, and it's run down Little Burke Street in Chinatown and attacked a Chinese bloke there. And then nearly killed him, but he didn't. And then the bloke got a pub in Sydney. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was in Sydney. And he's moved the animal there. And then he had a full-on menagerie then with all these different animals. And the bloke that was looking after his menagerie for him got into the tiger cage, was going to get into the tiger cage to show off, but I couldn't get anyone to pay him to do it. So then he was trying to show off to a girlfriend that he had there, and he was actually drunk at the time. And he's putting his hand in the cage and patting the tiger, but he was like scrunching his ears and roughing it around a little bit. And the girl he was with happened to ask, can I pat the tiger as well? And just as he said yes, the tiger's turned around and grabbed him by the arm and tore his arm off, and the bloke sadly died a short time after. So this tiger's got a pretty rough history in Australia, that's for sure. Okay, that's from me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.